Today's episode is about critical incident management. In today's multi-threat, real-time environment, it's critical that LP is educated, informed, and highly collaborative, both from a reactive and a proactive perspective. LP can make a difference. Find out how these leaders are helping to keep America's stores safer. With us today to discuss this topic is Chad McIntosh, VP of Loss Prevention and Risk Management for Bloomingdale's, and Blue Montez, Vice President Risk Management from American Apparel. Bob Oberhausler is running late, so we're going to proceed without him. So the first question, gentlemen, critical incidents in retail are obviously on the rise. Can we start out by talking about the proactive steps retailers can take about the physical security programs and educational programs for the employee populations, and about the importance of collaborative efforts with law enforcement? Gentlemen.
Sure. Thanks, Gus. It really is. Do you have an active shooter program today? Have you educated the associates in your store to run, hide, or fight? And really, how do you reinforce that on a regular basis so that with turnover in the retail environment, you have to train continuously on those practices? And then does your management team in the stores know that program? Does your asset protection teams understand that program? And then really it's taking social media today, understanding what's going on around your stores, what's coming into the view of your stores, what could impact your business, using that information to educate senior management, having a way to communicate with senior management when there is a crisis event in your store so that you can keep everybody informed. In this world of fast information, senior management in your department store today expects that you're on top of things and that you're going to get information quickly. Then it is, to your point, developing those partnerships and relationships with law enforcement, both locally and federally, and making sure that you've got great connections there so that you can get information fast from them.
Blue?
Yeah, well said, Chad. I also believe, as Chad mentioned, communication is a key fundamental in this process. I look at crisis management in two different categories, one on the active incident side as well as the business interruption side. And so, first and foremost, on the active incident side, you have to have a well-founded program that has great leaders, has leadership from the top down, and you have to be dependent on the field operations as well. Communication from top down, bottom up as well. On the other hand, though, you have to look at it from a business interruption standpoint. What are we going to put in place today if our four walls go down? What's in the cloud? What do we have as business interruption to prevent sales from going down? What do we have as a next step to going mobile in those aspects?
Recently, the United States government, the Department of Justice, even the FBI, and some of the city police officers, police departments, are now saying, don't hide, go reactive, attack the active shooter, go after them. And they're teaching it all across the country. I mean, this was, to me, a milestone event recently in the last month. And when you have, a population in the United States that's being told react, attack, don't necessarily hide. Now we have a population that's being trained that way. How does that impact a retail environment where we've been teaching, run, hide, fight, but hide is really the essence of it? So you have an incident in the store and the employee's told not to touch, but yet society's telling them and the law enforcement's telling them go attack. How do you handle that dichotomy?
So it's interesting. It is a challenge for all of us in that when you look at the number of incidents so far in the United States this year, I think the last time I looked at the number, there were 544 multiple injuries, shootings in the U.S. And when you looked at those events and you analyzed those events, an active shooter has never gone through a locked door. So getting into a stockroom and locking the door or barricading the door is what we want our associates to do. We are going to have people that are going to want to get involved and take control, and to your point, we'll fight. But it really is getting them into a safe position so that we don't have to worry about them.
If they do fight, though, don't they have the law behind them now?
I think it's a good point, though, you make. I think this kind of speaks to a bigger picture in the United States right now today. We're dealing with new gun laws. We're dealing with, changes, for example, in Texas at this point, the open carry law. We're dealing with a cultural change. We have, protests across the U.S. So at some point, we have to learn how to defend ourselves. And in that sense of that, there's the partnership with law enforcement. One thing to keep in mind is that dealing with law enforcement today, they're more apt to be trained by the federal government or state government agencies. So their training of firsthand knowledge is instrumental for the retailers to learn from them as well. And in the change in the paradigm shift that we've taken as retailers, going from, hide, defend yourself, be proactive, not only covers the employees, but also covers the customers that are inside the stores. The real question is, we have employees inside the stores, but we also have customers. What are we going to do for the customers when these active incidents take place? And that really goes back to what we learn from law enforcement.
Is any thought, or am I, out in left field here, on some type of national certification program, national training program for the 4.2 million employees in the retail stores? I mean, I know we've all been operating separately, but with the increased intensity of these things, and people are getting killed and shot, might there be an opportunity for that now in the future?
I think the Run, Hide, Fight program is nationally recognized, and most retailers today use that program to train their associates. And I think you're right from the standpoint that people are going to take charge today. When you think about an event on an airplane today, those guys don't get away with it anymore.
Right.
The customers take control of that environment. So I think we're shifting in that direction quite quickly.
Good. So what's LP's role? I mean, you've got a store or you've got a region, and your regional is in that mall, in that store when it happens. Your LPM is in that store when it happens. Are they still run, hide, fight?
I think LP's role today is really elevated in those situations. I think LP now has taken a role where they're the first responders in these situations. And it's a natural fit to organize a central command center, a central flow of communication all through the LP organization. I think it's really one of the unique situations that have changed over the years in the LP asset protection community. They become the first response team. They are the leaders in this role, this active incident issues, and they move forward as such.
Yeah, I think Blue's absolutely correct. We are the first response, and it's making a coordinated effort on what you're going to do. One, to ensure the safety of your associates and customers, and then communicate with local law enforcement to be sure that you manage the event appropriately.
Interesting that the two of the last big incidents, the one in Colorado and the one in San Bernardino, there were loss prevention people kind of semi-involved. I mean, we had a store manager or assistant store manager at Safeway who used to be an LP executive, who ended up locking the doors, protecting all the customers. And then regretfully, we had an LP associate actually sell the gun to the San Bernardino folks. So there's a little bit of a weird nexus there, but not to beat that up. So let's talk about the relatively new element of the last year, the social media impact. I mean, what kind of role does that play from a loss prevention perspective, and how do we manage that?
I think today's social media is more, it has to be more of a tool for us today, and it has been. Social media monitoring, I give you some examples in American Apparel. With us and our team monitoring social media, we were able to be ahead of situations to help guide the stores in the right direction. Social media, we've used that in aspects of what's happening in regions. We have a conglomerate of stores in one specific region, and social media is telling us there's something that's going to happen in that region. We're able to respond before it actually helps out or it hinders the stores. I think it's more of a level of additional intelligence that the retail community expects asset protection, loss prevention to have, and that's been the driving force with social media, especially when you monitor it correctly and you make the right reactions when you see the information out there.
Now, what do you mean by correctly? You mean within the privacy guidelines, or you mean more investigative correctively?
I think more in the sense of if somebody puts out there's going to be a protest on 34th and 5th Street in New York, and they make it well known, and the first steps is you partner with law enforcement, and that is out there in the open, and all we're doing is taking that information and guiding our stores in the right direction. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, I think Blue's is exactly right. It's if you don't have a process to monitor social media, you're going to miss an event. I learned this 4 years ago when the chairman kept coming to me and asking me what's going on here, what's going on there. He was learning about events occurring in our store that I wasn't aware of. I will tell you, with social media today, we knew about the San Bernardino incident before it was being reported on the news or by the police departments, because people were tweaking or Twitter was involved in that process. So we were aware of that event and monitoring it, giving information to our management team, because we do have business in California, and how far away it was from us and how much impact did we think that was going to have on our business.
And I would imagine that you basically, go ahead, Bill.
I would add one more thing. A well thought out collaborative active incident procedure within a company must include social media monitoring. Today's age of digital technology, if you don't have it, you're one step away from missing it, and that could be crucial minutes within making the right decision.
So what's your advice for our viewers when an LP executive finds themselves responding to their first critical incident? Advice for them?
It really is. It's all about preparation, understanding what your role is in that process, and then having a plan to react to it appropriately. Make sure that everybody goes home safe.
Yeah, and I would go on and add to that it's very important that you're keeping the right executive team informed. Not just that, but you're keeping the right field people informed. There's got to be a fluid conduit with that. And most importantly, making sure that you have a strong law enforcement connection, because they're the ones who are going to have the final say so. They're going to be the ones that guide you in the right direction. And most importantly, you have to be passive in the situation. You have to make calm and collective decisions during that process.
And I was going to say that, first of all, be prepared,
Yeah.
have a plan, be calm, and listen. And make sure you're getting a hold of law enforcement immediately before you even passing go and collecting $200. Contact law enforcement. But it would also help that they have a strong law enforcement, collaboration prior to that. So, which kind of says, hey, you need those kind of partnerships with law enforcement proactively before that happens.
Yeah, that's critical, actually, that you do have that relationship before an event. Mm-hmm. Being in New York City and operating in New York City, making a close connection with NYPD, because they have one of the greatest intelligence networks in the world. Yeah. Making sure that you've got that strong partnership with the local precinct, so that if you do have an event, everybody knows what they need to do.
Excellent.
And I would add to that too. We can't centralize active incidents only, domestically. You have to think internationally as well. And so, we have to expand that role, out, Canada, Europe, all abroad. And so, having that foundation of leadership and a good active incident reporting, that's a basis for your program. If it's well thought out and it's well put together, then that could go abroad and international as well too. I think today it's fair to say that the LP asset protection person in the field, in the executive seat today, is very knowledgeable in several aspects of what we do today, and that includes being a proactive person when it comes to active incidents.
Chad, Blue, thank you for being here today.
Thank you, Gus.
Thank you.
That's it for this episode today, ladies and gentlemen. We'd like to thank you for watching, and in the meantime, let's keep them all safe out there.